All right, and we are live. Umoya ulight, umoya upright. Welcome back to Moya, guys. Conversations. Once in a while, an episode is so popular that the audience demands for the guest to have a Q&A with the guest. As you can see, you know that ESCOM is a political tool in South Africa, so I'm here live streaming live in darkness. Thank you very much to the GNU and the fighting there. So we are struggling. However, we are all right. We're good to go. Comment section is officially opened. You guys asked me to bring back Kgosi so that he can unpack some of the stuff that he was saying. As I said to you guys last time, a lot of this content is flying high above my head. It's hilarious because I feel like I've just watched a play at the theater and everybody stands up and gives a standing ovation, and then I have to stand up and clap too, even though I don't know what the hell happened in the play. So we're fighting against ESCOM. There is load shedding, so there might be network problems, but we're just gonna go on ahead. There is almost 100 people in the room already, so I know you guys are so ready for this. Please, like I said, the comment section is open, so your questions, you know that I've already told you, declared my ignorance on this topic, so I will rely heavily on the comment section tonight. Abu Kgosi, welcome back to Moya Podcast. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Likai.
Thank you very much, Ntikiri. Likai.
Everything. As I said, your episode is so popular, you know. Even though I don't understand any of the stuff, but a lot of people seem to be resonating with the stuff you're saying, and we're gonna go into the comments section. I think you know that there were a couple of questions in the comment section, and I think you've gone through them, so you will know exactly where to start. So can I just hand the mic over to you? I'm just going to be a vessel once again tonight, and I'm hoping that people will ask the relevant questions and go right ahead. I hand you the mic, and thank you once again.
Okay, thank you very much. So I did go through the questions, but I cannot recall them off the top of my head. So I don't know. Is it possible for you perhaps maybe to read
Okay,
them?
not a problem. I'll go to you know, a lot of people were saying that they haven't been exposed to this kind of information before, right?
Yeah.
So why would that be that now there's this topic, like I even said in the beginning, that I feel like I'm in a theater where everybody's giving a standing ovation and I don't know what the hell is going on. So why do you think that is the issue? Why is there an information mislap, or why are we lost but some of you guys get it?
Okay. So the information, or rather the knowledge that I presented last time on the podcast was actually kept as a secret, right? Over 6,000 years ago, when white people were created, right? So this knowledge, so before that, I don't know if I said this in the podcast, but we actually, as Black people here on the earth, we actually had 12 tribes, a total of 12 tribes. And when we entered this cycle of self-forgetfulness, what happened is that only a select few from those tribes were given this information to hang on to for the entire time of this cycle, right? For the entire duration of this cycle. And then they were instructed that by the end of the cycle, they must start now giving us back that knowledge, right? And Black Root Science, the book that is behind me right now, is actually the very first time whereby this knowledge was made public. But before that, it was not known by anyone. It was only known by people that were initiated into it. That's why it seems like whenever I'm presenting it like this, in Igare, it's totally new, whereas it's actually not new, right? So Black Root Science was actually released. It's a book that was written on I think it was around 2003, 2004. At first, it was a blog post, like how I post on my website. Modemunch was actually posting these things on Sister Desti forum, right? After that, after a period of about maybe close to 10 years, that's when he started compiling everything that he was posting then into a book and then called it Black Root Science. Right. So that he's the first person to come out with this information and make it public, because we are at the end of the cycle of self-forgetfulness and we must now remember who we are. On top of that, Mudimunchu was actually sent to actually educate the Black Americans, right? The Black people that are in America, right? So they actually know this information. But then as time went by, we had to get to a point whereby now everyone had to have access to this information, right? And that's where I come in terms of South Africa, because here in South Africa, I'm actually the very first to present this information publicly. So that's basically why the reason why
you say something so interesting. You say that the white race is only created recently, right? And I mean, we've been watching now with the situation. I don't know if you've been watching the news with Nota and the comments that he made about. So maybe can you just unpack that for us? What do you mean that white people were only recently created?
Right. So I will do that by trying to again narrate our history as I tried to do it last time, right? So over 50,000 years ago, because that's where really the story starts. Before 50,000 years ago, we were living a perfect life. We were living in our perfect bodies. Everything was perfect, literally. And around that time, 50,000 years ago, a decision was taken, right, by the 24 elders, like I said last time, the ones that look over the earth, like, right. So a decision was taken that after about 50,000 years, we are supposed to now start this cycle of self-forgetfulness, right, whereby we experience how it is to forget that we are gods, right. So they started from 50,000 years ago to deteriorate their bodies up until around 44,000 years ago, whereby they deteriorated their bodies to the state that we are in right now, right? And then from there, that's when a person who just looks like me and you, by the way, was born. He was called Yahweh, right? And Yahweh was tasked with a mission of ensuring that we experience the cycle of self-forgetfulness. The thing is, once we deteriorated our bodies, we still couldn't bring about evil into the world, right? So we had to create beings that are literally the opposite of us to come and unleash this evil into the world, so to say, right? So that is the reason why white people were created. They created 6,000 years ago. White people are the exact opposite of us. If you look at the genetic structure of the black man, you will see that we have dominant genes and we have recessive genes. The dominant black genes are always dominant over the white recessive genes, right? It is always the case, right? So what Yahweh discovered 6,000 years ago is that if he was to remove completely this dominant black gene, what would happen is that we would only have a people that have the recessive white gene, and they would behave in the opposite way in which black people behave. You understand? Because black people are highly moral, white people will be the exact opposite of that, right? And that's how they were brought by into creation for this very, very same purpose. And obviously, we have seen that they've definitely fulfilled their purpose, right? In terms of slavery, in terms of colonization, and in fact, they still continue today with neo-colonization, right? So that is basically the reason and how we got to a point whereby we created white people.
And then, for the sake of YouTube, I'd like to state that the information on this channel and in this interview is not facts or what our viewers' discretion must be used. We are just unpacking and we are experimenting and exploring various types of topics. So we do not say any of this information as facts. Guys, if so there's a question here that says, Sanbonani, What happens when a person is a descendant of different racial lineage? Where do they go since Black people go back to their creator?
Right. Let me answer that question. When you are a descendant of different racial lineages, right? What we check. So before I actually answer it, we need to understand that at a very high level, we only have two races in the world. You are either black or you are white, right? And by that I mean you either have the black dominant gene or you don't have it. That's it. So that's how we know whether someone is black or white. So if you're a descendant of different racial lineages, all we need to check from you is whether you have the black dominant gene or not. If you have it, then you are black. If you don't have it, then we consider you white, and that's it.
Gibona here, it says, according to the book, the white people in 1914 were given 100 years to repent, and if calculated correctly, 2024 was their last year. So what is to follow?
Right. So yes, that is indeed true. In 1914, actually the 6,000 year cycle ended in 1914. Right. From there, they were given 100 years to repent, meaning that they should accept that they did what they did, and they should accept that they were created by black people. But then, of course, because white people are white people, um, they didn't do any of that, right? In fact, they made things worse because after 1914, that's also during the times of apartheid. They actually made things worse from there, right? So 2014, that's when the 100-year period of their repentance ended, and then from 2014, that is officially the year whereby we have officially entered a new era whereby we are trying to remember ourselves, right? So in terms of what to follow after 2014 is that because of we are living in the end times, as I like to call them, what will happen is that as time goes by, things will start to naturally, and this is not something that will be done by black people. This is done by nature itself, right? Naturally, the Western system will start to collapse, right? It's been collapsing even before then, but 2014 was the actual official year whereby it started to actually collapse and gradually slowly so, right? And it is still collapsing even now, and it will continue to collapse until it is no more, right? But at the same time, that's around the time whereby us as black people started to remember who we are, started to work together, to come together to ensure that we rebuild our ancient communities, right? So that's basically what follows after 2014. I don't know if I should maybe get into the specifics of Yahweh and the extraterrestrials and all of that, but that's basically a summary of what follows after that.
You're welcome to get into it because I got the sense that the audience is ready and is deep and understands this topic.
Yeah,
So you're welcome to go into it.
right. So in from 2014, what happens from here is that the ETs, right, as I like to call them, maybe let me just backtrack a bit and say that they have been on a mission ever since from over 2,000 years ago, right? They have been on a mission whereby they are trying to milk people off of their genes, right? So when I say this, I mean it literally, like literally milk people off of their genes, either from their skin or from the seed of men, if you get what I'm saying. So it's literal. That's those are the genes that they need in order to maintain themselves. So all of this is happening because the extraterrestrials, which know very well that they are close to extinction, are trying to make sure that they don't go extinct. And the only way for them to not go extinct is to constantly milk people off of their genetics, off of their genetic material, right? So from 2014 going forward, especially during this time that we are living in right now, where most black people around the earth are starting to awaken, right? Are starting to realize the truth, are starting to know what's actually happening. They are trying by all means, wherever they are, to ensure that their plan is intact, right? So what happens from here up until the year, I'd say 2020, up until around 2050, what will happen is that as the Western system deteriorates, these ETs will start to show themselves here on this planet. And once they show themselves, they're going to show themselves as people that, or as beings that are higher than us, or as beings that are here to save us. Because of as the Western system collapses, what happens is that because us as Black people are part of the Western system as well, we are also going to face the unfortunate collapse of it as well. We are also going to be affected by it, right? So they're going to come and pretend as if they're trying to save us from the already collapsing Western system by pretending to be beings that are higher than us, that by pretending to be gods, basically, right? And they've been preparing this ever since 2000 years ago. If you look at the Bible, for example, when they describe angels, they describe very, very weird beings. You'd see, they would say, eyes all over, wings like this. And those are the angels that we're expecting. But in truth, angels are literally just black, like you and me, right? So those are the things, those are the type of beings that we should be expecting in terms of the ETs showing themselves very, very soon. They're going to come out slowly and surely for sure. But when they come, Kore, it's, let me say, it's their final attempt, right, to deceive us, basically.
Color TV is asking the true voice that we will hear if we link with our higher self. Will it be a deep, intimidating voice or a smooth, calming voice?
Right. So that depends on the voice of your higher self. I cannot speak for anyone else's higher self. I know the voice of my higher self. The voice of my higher self is deep, but at the same time, it is soothing. It is very difficult to describe, right? It is a soothing deep. I don't know if that's even a word or even a thing, but yes, that's basically it. And once you hear the voice of the higher self, what happens is that once you recognize it, it's not something that will scare you. It is not something that will scare you. I'm saying this in case maybe the person is maybe thinking that they're going to be scared by the voice or anything like that. It is not something that will be scary, but once you hear it, you will most definitely feel it.
Tabiso is saying that according to the book, the light race, when they die, they will go back into the brain of the Yahweh because they don't have the black genes and can't go back to their original being form. Can you unpack that for us?
I am not sure what it means, but I know, I think I get where he's going.
Uh-huh.
So we, at this current point, right, we could say we have two heavens, right? Two heavens that existing simultaneously. We have Yahweh's heavens, and then we have the true heavens of the 24 elders, right? So Yahweh's heavens are a heaven within a heaven, whereby the 24 elders heaven is the one that is encapsulating Yahweh's heavens, right? So what happens is that all of us, including us as Black people, actually, when we die, we are going to ascend first to Yahweh's heavens. That's where the 3 days thing, the 3 days cleansing period takes place. It takes place in Yahweh's heavens, right? That's where we ascend to with white people. Once we are done with the cleansing and we are done with all of our initiations there, then we ascend to the mind of the 24 elders. But white people cannot ascend to the mind of the 24 elders because they were created by Yahweh. They will stay in Yahweh's heavens and they will live there forever until they die a second death, or until if they so choose. If they so choose.
Tell me about the 144,000, that number, its relevance. Because I even saw on your website you talked about it. So do you want to unpack that for us, the 144,000?
Yes, yes, let me unpack it. So 6,000 years ago, remember I said that 50,000 years ago we deteriorated our bodies until 44,000 years ago, right? What happened is that there was a group of people, 144,000 judges. Remember our leadership structure? We have the 24 elders, 144 chiefs, as well as the 144,000 judges. So the elders, the chiefs, as well as the judges, all of those three groups are the only beings that never deteriorated their bodies. But the rest of the Black society deteriorated their bodies, right? And then from there, The elders, let me talk about the elders and the chiefs before I get into the 144,000. The elders and the chiefs still retain their bodies to this day and are still alive on this planet to this day, right? The 164 in number. 24 plus 144 is 164, right? So they are still alive on this planet with their original bodies. And then the 144,000 judges, their mission was that 6,000 years ago, once the deterioration process was complete, they were the only ones left with those bodies, and then they surrendered their bodies to be used as bodies of resurrection in this at this point that we are living in right now, right? So those 144,000 judges, they laid their bodies there, and then they ascended. They died, right? And after they died, their bodies were taken, and then they were stored under the pyramid of Giza. That's where they are still stored even to this day. In fact, if you can go and research and go very deep with this research, you will find that white people actually found that temple under the pyramid of Giza, where the original bodies are found. And they tried to access it, to try to penetrate it, but they couldn't penetrate it because it's protected by a magnetic field that is very, very strong, that cannot be penetrated by anything, quite literally anything in this world. So that temple there under the pyramid of Giza is housing 144,000 bodies. So now, the very same people that were judges 6,000 years ago, the very same people that surrendered their bodies, are the very same people that are alive today on the planet, and they need to reoccupy their bodies again and then take over the rulership of the earth. That's why we have this so-called 144,000 elects. They are not really elects. They are the very same people that were alive 6,000 years ago as judges in their original bodies. So basically what's happening is that they are just going to return to their original bodies and then rule over the earth from there.
You know what I would like to ask you? You speak of these giants, right? These I don't know, some people call it Anunnaki. And when you look at like the people in further North Africa, Bo Sudan and stuff, you find that those men are so, even Nigerians, they're so tall and so big.
Mm-hmm.
Is it possible? Are we the descendants? Do we come after that? Are we from that? Can you, yeah,
Yes.
because we're not as big as.
Yes, let me get back to you very quickly. I wanted to answer the door first.
No problem, no problem. Guys, please do ask questions because you had a lot to say about my ignorance in the last episode. So I hand over the mic to you guys. All the questions you need to ask. I've already told you guys that I'm very like blonde here. All right, Kgosi.
Right. So, yes, we are the direct descendants of those original gods, right? Remember, they deteriorated their bodies to the bodies that we have today, and then they had children, and here we are today, right? But I want to correct something that you said there, because you mentioned Anunnaki. We must not use the original gods with the Anunnaki. They are completely two different beings. The
Oh,
Anunnaki
okay.
are actually also an extraterrestrial race. They are not the original gods. I just wanted to clarify that one. The Anunnaki are not the original gods,
Okay.
terrestrial race that were created by the original gods.
So who are they then? Because that name always comes up when we're researching Black history.
They are exactly that. The reason there's so much confusion about them is that they also ensured that there's confusion, right? They also presented themselves to our people as gods, like all beings do. That's why there's a lot of confusion around them. But the Anunnaki were also created by Black people. They're an extraterrestrial race. They are not the original gods.
Okay, I see another question here from Color TV. Ari, what happens during the reign of Anu and his two sons during their mining of gold in South Africa, and they built the so-called Adam's calendar in Zaloyelang?
You see, my sister, we are very confused as Black people. We know there's a lot of sources of information that we read. You will read from this, and it will tell you this. You'll read another book, and it will tell you the complete opposite, right? So right now, the person is claiming rather that Anu is the one who built the Adam's calendar. And that is not true, unfortunately. The Adams calendar is indeed a thing, but it was a calendar that was used by black people in general, the black people that were living here in South Africa back then, back before the advent of white races, right? They are not, because I'm not sure if by Anu he's also referring to a being that is part of the Anunnaki or what, but from my knowledge, the Adams calendar pre-existed even those people that that we are taught are the ones that created the Adams calendar.
Then Tabiso is asking, I need to get clarity as to where does a product of mixed race fall under. If the father is white and mother is black, will the child still be black or not?
The child of a black person and a white person, either way, in terms of gender, is black.
Okay, okay. Wendy's asking, will these whites come back to Earth, or will they be detained based on the history of their history of greed?
Will they be detained? I don't think I understand this question. Will the whites come back? Where are they going? First of all, I don't. Maybe
Wendy, please can you rephrase that question so that
it's
I understand, we can understand it better. Melo Entertainment is saying you cannot drop a bomb like that and keep quiet. But Melo, and please tell us what the bomb was so that we can unpack it. Sisanda is asking, if I may humbly ask, what is the original source of this information?
the original source of this information is the ancestors of the Black Nation. Modimunchu, the person who wrote the Black Crusades, is an
Yes.
initiator, right? They were initiated. Remember, I mentioned that as Black people in this current cycle, we have 3 initiations basically. The first one is the rites of passage, which we already know, whereby someone goes to go tabing to get initiated. But although I must emphasize for sure that what we have today as the rites of passage that happen at mountains are nothing of what we used to have as the rites of passage, right? They are completely different. But originally we did have these 3 initiations, the rites of passage, and then the next one. And the rites of passage is something that all Black people went through, right? And then at a later stage, a few group of people were selected to be trained as sangomas or dingak, right? And we are already familiar with that as well, right? Because we have a lot of sangomas around, we have dingaka. We're already familiar with that type of initiation. Now, the third and last type of initiation is actually the one that was kept a secret for the past 6,000 years, right? It's the initiation into griotship, which is where Mudimunchu, the author of Black Science, is initiated, right? So when you are initiated at that level, what happens during the initiation is that I will mention a 3-day ritual that they do. It's actually a 3-day dream ritual whereby a person is dreaming for a total of 3 days, 72 hours, right? Once in that state, they are actually taken and to experience the past as 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 it was, right? So in that dream state, they go back in time and then they experience themselves as gods, right? And they live for up to 1,000 years. Remember, the dream world time is not the same time as this. It's not the same as the time that we have in this reality, right? It is much faster to say that. So in just 3 days, a person can live up to 1,000 years in the dream life, right? And experience whatever or however we used to live. And then once you come back from that 3-day ritual, you come back knowing very well that you were once a god. And then you come back learning whatever you've learned for that entire 1,000 years, but just in 3 days. And then you come back with that information and then you present it to us to tell us, this is how we used to live 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's basically how griots are initiated.
Mm.
So that is the source of the information. It comes from the original gods.
Soulful Vuyo is saying, how do we use this information in our daily living?
Right. So this is the reason why I created the website, right? We are supposed to take this information. First of all, we are supposed to learn it, attain the knowledge. Second of all, we are supposed to experience the knowledge. Remember, right now, we cannot experience it though, because in terms of experience, You experience it through initiation, the very same initiation that Modimunchu went through. But because we don't have that access today, we can actually gain that experience in the Toro, right, in the dream world. That is the second stage. The third stage is now applying that knowledge that you have gained, knowing very well that you are God, knowing very well that this is how you are supposed to live, or rather, this is how you used to live. You now start applying those concepts in this life. And what happens when you start applying this knowledge is that besides the base purpose of self-remembrance, it also acts to pull us out of our misery because we are suffering as Black people, right? So it's a sort of, it's a solution for us to 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 pull ourselves from our misery, to pull ourselves from our struggle, and know how to move forward, going forward. I don't know if that answered the question.
Venus is asking, do gods have eternal life?
Gods have eternal life. But let me clarify what I mean by that. What I mean is that we have been in existence since the beginning was no beginning, and we are going to continue to exist forever. However, we don't exist in physical bodies forever. It is not possible for us to exist even in our physical, even in our original bodies. We don't exist forever. We used to live for up to 7,000 years. That's the lifespan of ancient Black people, 7,000 years. After that, and we are done with our mission on Earth, we ascend, and then we come back again, and we are born anew, and then we go through the process of life again, of trying to again get to that level of becoming full gods once again. That's basically the cycle that always repeats and has been repeating ever since eternity.
We as black colored South Africans, who are we linked to or descendants from in terms of the many Egyptian gods or creators?
Colored are Black people, and all Black people are descendants of the original gods, and there's no other answer than that.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm busy trying to see, are we the descendants of those black people who built the calendars? Are they what we have now, what we now know as Zulus, Xhosas, Zwana?
Yes, that is true. We are direct descendants
Okay.
of the calendars.
Venus is asking you, Uti, how did you recognize your higher self?
Recognizing the voice of the higher self, I would describe the experience is something that it's unlike anything that you've ever experienced before. Or let me rather put it this way: recognizing the voice of the higher self is almost like a self-referencing concept. You only are able to recognize it when you hear it, right? Once you hear it, there is no doubt in your mind that this is the voice of your higher self. You cannot even, once you hear a voice and you have a doubt that this is the voice of your higher self, then that's not the voice of your higher self.
And then when do you, Mahoa, are they going to be extinct, as you mentioned, or is this just the system falling and they will continue to live?
No, white people will not continue to live. They will eventually go extinct. Their momentum, their genetics can only carry them, or rather, they were created such that they can only last for a period of 7,000 years. So right now, 6,000 years has passed, right? Once that 6,000 years has passed and their system is collapsed, they too are also collapsing, right? If you go and, in fact, I'll reference what Nota said in that video, that white people right now, we are dealing with the weakest white people that we've ever dealt with in the world. Some of them are trying very, 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 very hard to have babies, and they can't have babies because their genes are like that. They are very, very weak, right? So they are deteriorating themselves. So eventually, because of that, if as a species you cannot procreate, eventually you go extinct, and that's exactly what will happen to white people.
There's some juicy comments in the comment section that I'm just going to ignore. There's a question there from your video that says, What is Khosi's take on the saying that fractions of our souls is in this present body? Our other souls are out somewhere experiencing, collecting data, learning and evolving. Everything data collected goes back to the creator source, Vedingmangi. As of late, the cosmologists and physicists say that the universe is expanding, which correlates with the fact that as souls, unaware some of us, we are busy creating and we have effects on the universe without thinking. It's a lot.
It is a lot, but I'll answer the
Yeah.
question. Essentially, yes. As Black people, we are also at the very same time, right now as we speak, alive in many other Earth-like planets all over the universe. We are alive right now. Just that right now, we do not have access to those other personalities of ours. What happens is that God, before let me say God, before he incarnates or before she incarnates, because God is both a black man and a woman. So God, before she incarnates, um, she can incarnate anywhere on any Earth-like planet, right? So, and we incarnate for different reasons. So in another planet, there's something else going on. In this planet, there's self-forgetfulness going on. In some other planet, maybe in Syria, something else is going on. We are also alive there. And even in those planets, there's a maximum of 1 billion, 8 million black people. And the number never exceeds 1 billion, 8 million. Even on this planet right now, the maximum number of black people is 1 billion, 8 million.
Yes, sis. Okay, the Law and Peace show is saying there are 12 cranial nerves in the brain, which are the 12 elders he is talking about. 12 multiplied by 12 is 144. I wish I could explain how the 144,000 will resurrect, but there's no space. Kgosi is so right. Will you be able to explain it a little bit, Kgosi?
Okay, let me expand on that. Especially the part of how the 144,000 are going to resurrect back into their bodies. The 144,000, what will happen is that the first stage of their awakening, they are going to first awaken first, right? While on this planet, they're going to awaken and discover this information, right, that I'm presenting right now. Because the main reason that I'm presenting this information is so that it can reach the 144,000. Once this information reaches the 144,000 and they know that this information was meant for them, eventually, after digesting the information, they'll eventually attain initiation, the very same initiation that Mudimunchu went through, the initiation of Christship, that high initiation. That initiation will prepare them to not only resurrect in their ancient bodies, but also help as many black people as possible in these trying times that are coming.
Lefense Ari, please expand on the concept of 3-day spiritual cleansing in Yahweh's heavens vis-a-vis the narrative of Uktwebula Idlozi. Who is behind this narrative or concept?
Right. So, Uktwebula Idros, as I understand it, Sangoma say that they go ematuning, right? And maybe I could be corrected if I'm wrong. And they go to someone's grave. Let's say it's my grave. It's written there, Kgosi Mogale died, whenever. They go there and they go there to collect my spirit. And then they take that spirit and then they use it. And then that's what they call Uktwebula, right? I will say it right now and put an end to that myth. There is no such thing, my sister. It is not possible to table it was. It is not something that is possible. It is not. Think of it like this: a human being taking the spirit of a literal God and taking it and using it as they please. That is something that is not possible. So what happens actually when they say baya tebula or they're taking someone's spirit? They're not taking anyone's spirit. The concoctions that they mix, the herbs that they use, the animals that they use, they create an energy that mimics the energy of that person. And then they take that energy and then use it. And then they say, but Twebula Itos. There's no such thing. That person's spirit is ascended with the 25, with the 24 elders. And in fact, maybe at that point, they've already incarnated back to earth and living again as a new person. And when you are claiming that we are Twebula Itos, there is no such thing. They just mimic the energy and then they take it and then they use it.
Lefense is asking again, do ETs have an influence in the current Sangoma initiations? How different is the current one vis-a-vis the ancient Sangoma Bungaga initiation?
That is a very good question. A very, very good question. And I will answer it in a very long format so that people can understand. Before the advent of white people, Ubungoma has always been there, right? Even in this cycle, right? But then, as white people came closer and closer to us, and we came closer and closer to them, you know how we used to be living in our villages, and then they came, and then they colonized, and they did whatever, okay? And then they built cities, and then because they took everything from us, we had to go and fend for ourselves, right? So we went to the very same places where white people built to go look for jobs and stuff like that. That's why you'd hear people saying, "Hi, Kiatama, I'm going to a Goli to look for life there because of we don't have anything here." Right. So basically, the same thing happens. The same thing happened with Sangomas. Remember back then, Sangomas used to be paid not in money but in dinero, or what we call gifts. Right. You would come to a Sangoma, ask for help, and then they would help you. Right. And then from there, you would give them whatever you have. Right. So now, as people migrated into the cities and left, it means that Sangomas also didn't have anything to eat, right, because they ate from the gifts that people were giving them. So they too had to go out there and fend for themselves. And then at that point, what happened was that two streams of Ubungoma were created. The one that is modern, of the people that went to the cities and to fend for themselves, and the ones that knew, hi, we are not going there. If we go there, what will happen is that we are going to lose ourselves, right? So now, the ones that have the original Ubungoma, what they did was that they started to, when they initiate people, they started to actually keep certain information from them and only give them certain access to certain information because they knew that once they get this information, they're just going to take it and go to the white man's world and give it to them, which is something that we are seeing today as we see white people initiating as sangomas, which is something that is insane, right? So right now we actually have two streams of ubungo. We have a hidden ubungoma that is what we would call ubungoma obufihlweyo, right? And then we have the modern ubungoma that is popular that we all know. And then this modern ubungoma that we all know is the one it has extraterrestrial influence, and I want to confirm that. The modern Sangoma that we know today, it indeed does have extraterrestrial influence. We never worshipped any things that lived in water, but we do today as Sangomas. And you know what lives in water? These are the very same ETs that we are trying to move away from, the very same ETs. So the colonization, or rather, the deceivement or the deception, yes, that's the correct word, the deception of the ETs have went so far into our people to an extent whereby even our own Ubungoma and even our own healers, who actually today do not know anything, that that they are actually under the influence of these ETs. Remember, or let me make an example. Someone saying something like, "I mina kinale a mermaid spirit in vatvate." That is extraterrestrial influence. All those beings that live under the water that are half human and half fish are extraterrestrials. They are not human beings, and we're not supposed to be worshipping them. But Sangomas are worshipping them today. So Sangomas definitely, most definitely, have an extraterrestrial influence. But the hidden Ubungoma that I talk about is the one that is pure, that does not have any extraterrestrial influence, that we don't have access to now. But there are people that are from time to time chosen and are initiated secretly into that Ubungoma. And one of those people was alive here in South Africa, and is known as the man called Umkhulu Credo.
If you say our true bodies are in the first earth created, or in the first age created, that means we are remote viewing even now.
Wait, what? If you say our true bodies are
Our
in
true bodies are in the first earth created, that means we are remote viewing even now. So our real selves are in the first earth, is what this comment is saying.
our real selves are everywhere, not only in the first earth, but also in this earth, as black people, as you and me. So we are not remote viewing anything. This is reality. This is very real. We are here alive as Black people today. So we shouldn't say those are our original selves. Those very same people that are on the first earth are also alive as us today, right now, at the very same time.
Mo is asking, what is our purpose? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? Where are we going?
I will answer that question. We have two purposes, right? And this is something that has never happened before. Right now, there are two purposes. There's a general purpose and there's a specific purpose, right? So the general purpose of all Black people, as we are right now, is to awaken and remember who we are. That is the general purpose. That's where we all start. Once you awaken and know who you are and remember yourself as God, then you will know your specific purpose from there, which I do not know, which I cannot tell anyone because those are your specific purposes. But I can tell you the general purpose that will ultimately lead you to your specific purpose. And that general purpose is that we need to remember who we are.
Color TV saying, my brother, I have question about seeing different colors when you're in a state of meditation. What do the colors indicate when you're in darkness?
That is a very involved question, actually, because it involves, for you to be able to see colors, even like that, means that you are you have a heightened sense. You have heightened senses, right? So and that's basically what it means. It means that you have heightened senses, and if you are a person that is experiencing that, you should be taking advantage of it and making sure that you are in tune with it, making sure that you find a way to tune it. And the way to tune it is by proper fasting. By proper fasting, when you properly fast and complete the 7-day fasting plan, which is there on my website, you will be able to be in tune with all of those things, and you will know what they mean. I cannot say what those colors mean because I don't even know what the colors you saw are, because that person didn't even specify the colors. But that's basically what it means. It means that the person has achieved that heightened sense ability.
Venus is asking, do the 12 original kingdoms each have their own language?
Yes, the 12 original tribes each have their own languages. So originally we only had 12 languages, not the many that we have today. But the many that we have today are all descendants of the original 12 languages, including the languages of the Western people.
There's a question here from your episode that says, what is Khosi's take on Galactic Federation? The statement that spaceships have been around Earth for many years. Some aliens are said to live up to 800 years, which means they might have been here hovering over our planet for hundreds and decades of years.
Right. So the so-called Galactic Federation is nothing but just another way of the ETs trying to deceive us, because they are the ones that are behind this Galactic Federation. They are the ones that are trying to pretend as if they've been there and they've been allowing us to live, and now they're coming back to take control of the Earth and stuff like that. So the Galactic Federation is actually run by these very, very same extraterrestrials that we must avoid. As you can see, they're trying many different ways to deceive us, and the Galactic Federation is one of them.
Okay, and then okay, Venus is saying she dreamt about the 12 languages, and what you're saying is true. The Ra Healing Institute says, what can we do to remember ourselves?
To remember ourselves, we must get into the habit of remembering. It is as simple as that. The more we get into the habit of remembering, ultimately it will lead us to remembering who we are. Now, let me expand on what I actually mean when I say remembering who we are, right? When I say remembering who we are, I am referring to the memories of our lifetime, of this lifetime as we are living right now, right? The truth of the matter is that we have been, as Black people, talking to God ever since we were children. But then as we grew up and we were taught to fear God and we were taught to we are taught that whoever sees the face of God will just shred in pieces and die. What happened is that we sort of like turn our consciousness inward and suppress those memories, right? So now when I say remember, I'm saying that the more you get into the habit of remembering, it will ultimately lead you to remember that you have had conversations with God before. And once you remember that you have conversations with God before, you'll remember yourself as that very same God. And that's what remembering yourself as God actually means.
Samuel Mogale is asking, the current reality is that many people, perhaps due to jealousy caused by poverty, believe that we are bewitching one another collectively. What are the effects of this on our shared spirituality?
Believe that we are bewitching one another collectively. Are we bewitching one another collectively? Yes, we are. We are bewitching one another. And the reason we're bewitching one another is because of it's part of this experience of this cycle of self-forgetfulness, right? And it does have an effect on our spirituality. Look at how we are behaving right now. We're not behaving any different from the white man. And this is not who we are. So all of those are results of the influence of the deceivers. So we have come under the influence of deceivers and we have done these things and they have affected us spiritually. But the time for that has come to an end, fortunately.
Tabiso is asking, can you explain the Holy Trinity?
The Holy Trinity is a very involved topic. Okay? At the very, very highest level, the Holy Trinity is represented by Mother, Father, and the Son, right? Those who know will tell you that reality was actually created in a sort of like a triangle form, right? And it mimics that very same Holy Trinity of the Mother, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, or rather, the Mother,
The
the Father,
child.
and the Son/daughter. That's what I wanted to say.
Yes,
Son.
the child.
So the Holy Trinity, where it really comes from, it actually explains how creation came to be, right? The mother can create on her own. The father can create on her own. The child can create on her own. So those are already three realities. On top of that, the mother can join the father and they can create together, right? The mother and the child can create together, and the father and the child can create together. And then all of them can create together at the same time, right? And that's where that's why 7 is the number of completion. Just to add on to that, so the Holy Trinity is something that it does represent Mother, Father, and Son, but also it actually represents how things come to be, right? Let me explain what I mean by this. Let's say I am sweeping. Let's say I am sweeping the floor, right? I, as the person who is sweeping the floor, I am the father of that creation, right? The sweeping is like the mother of the creation. And the result, which is the clean floor, is the child of the creation. So that's literally how everything happens. Once you start thinking of your actions, you will see that it is always in that trinity. It is you doing something for an exact result. Three things. You, something, result. Can you see where the Holy Trinity enters? So that's basically another explanation or another way in which we can view the Holy Trinity. And also, the Holy Trinity, again, because it has multitudes of different meanings, it is also represented in terms of our hierarchy of leadership, whereby we have the 24 elders, the 144 chiefs, as well as the 144,000 judges. Can you see how that is also a trinity in itself?
Sure, it's very deep information. Since Tabitha is asking, since we live in other earthly planets beyond this one, are we in the same body structure, or is the book different on the other side?
It depends on what the reality is on that planet. For example, in the star system that we know as Sirius, there we have our original bodies. We have our original bodies that are perfect. And in many other planets as well, we actually have our original bodies. But that is not to say that in all planets we have our original bodies, because we don't know what is happening in those planets. It could be that something else is happening, and the bodies that we have there are much, much different than what we have or what we can even comprehend right now, right? So maybe in other planets we are even taller than we are, or in other planets maybe we are even smaller than we are right now. But the common thing amongst all of those things is that all of those people are black.
Sure. Moore is asking you to please talk about good and bad, including free will.
Good and bad, including free will. Let
Do
me
we
start.
have free will?
Yes, let me start with free will. We have two types of wills, as I have come to understand will, right? We have what I would call absolute will, and we have what I would call relative will, right? I will start with absolute will. Absolute will is what we have as black people before we incarnate into the earth, before we are born, as gods, like when we are still united with the minds of the elders, before we actually born as people on the earth. That's when we have absolute will, because we plan our lives there, right? That's where we plan our lives for, okay, me as Kgosi, I'm gonna get born, and I'm gonna be born in South Africa, and this is what's going to happen. I'm gonna go to school there, and ultimately in 2025, I'm going to have a podcast with Nziki, and this is going to happen after that. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You plan your entire life as a god. So that's where the absolute free will comes in. So once you incarnate in here, because the absolute free will has already done its job, all we have right now is relative free will. Relative free will, how? Relative to the absolute free will. I don't know if you get me. For example,
Yes.
there is a multitude of ways in which our lives can continue, right?
Yes.
Based on the absolute will that was exercised before we were born. So now, going forward, we can only choose one of these paths. And that's where the relative comes in, because the absolute will has already set us multiple ways, and then we only choose one of those paths, and then that becomes our reality. So that is the explanation behind free will. So we do have free will, but absolute free will, we only have it before we are born, and right now we only have relative free will.
Does that mean, okay, like how does that mean in my past life I chose a journey of someone who's going to be revolutionary, radical, and change things and be for Black people's rights? Does that explain why, in this reality, when white people try to buy me, I can't resonate, and I don't quite go that direction. I still go down the broke direction. Is that what you mean?
Let me expand on that actually. So it doesn't mean that in your past life you chose it. It means before you were born. Your past life is a completely different thing, right? So before
Okay.
you were born, you chose that this is how you're going to look at life. And then and that you chose exactly the things that you've said, right? So because of that absolute free will has already set in place how we are going to look at life, it is impossible for you to even choose something that is completely different from that. For example, saying that you're going to go and love white people and marry them and whatever. It is impossible for you in your case, because the absolute free will that has been exercised only gives you the direction whereby you are for black people, and that's it.
Sure. Interesting. Um, does the soulful Vuyo is asking, does the food we eat have anything to do with remembering?
Yes, it does, and I'll explain why. Not only the food we eat, but also how frequent we eat them, right? So, and this is the importance behind why we must absolutely make sure, as black people, if there is one thing that maybe I would say right now, right? Um, as black people, we must absolutely make sure that we have, or absolutely make sure that we complete, is the 7-year fasting plan. Once we complete the 7-year fasting plan, what happens is that you're gonna start eating once in 3 days, right? And obviously at that point you will be eating healthy as well, right? We should be eating healthy. Once you start eating once in 3 days, what happens is that there are certain dormant glands of a perception that we have as black people. They have been dormant over the past 6,000 years. But once you start eating once in 3 days, those dormant glands of perception, they get reactivated. These are the so-called chakras, as people know them, right? These dormant glands of perception, they get reactivated, and they allow you to perceive more of reality than what we're actually aware of right now. So that is the importance of eating healthy and also not eating frequently. It helps us to reactivate those dormant glands of perception.
Rawa Mutua is asking, are we fractals of the whole? Fractals of the whole.
Yes, yes. And I will expand on what he's saying, right? Because as black people, 1 billion, 8 million black people, really we are just, in fact, let me start here. All that exists in creation, across all of existence, there's only one thing that exists, and that's God, right? So this God divided himself or herself into multitude of beings or people, and he divided himself into a total number of 1 billion, 8 million people. And that's where the fractals come in. Each and every single one of us are the fractals of this one Mudimu, as we refer to it, to him, this one God. But then once we are separated, because now there are multiple people, we now say Badim instead of saying Mudim. But when we combine in mind, that's when we are one thing that we can refer to as God, or what we refer to as Mudim.
I'm so happy that the Love and Peace Show asked this question. Can one use a river for cleansing but be free from the influence of ET?
My sister, I wouldn't advise it, because the rivers that we have today are contaminated. They are not the same as they used to be. Before, they used to be very pure and well, we could use them for cleansing. But today, they are contaminated. There are people that have been killed, that have been thrown there. The ETs live there. Many, many things happen there, right? So many of them are contaminated. Though naturally rivers do cleanse themselves, it is very difficult to know when exactly are they clean and when are they not clean. So as much as a river cleansing still does some good, it doesn't really help to that much extent. It's like a temporary thing. It will cleanse you and you will feel good for that moment, but after 3 days, back to normal.
Tabitha saying, can you share some light on the other saviors who came before Jesus and why are we not told about them?
Right. So there were a total of 7 saviors that came before Jesus. The last Messiah, the last and 7th Messiah that came, was actually alive in the last century, and he was called Fat Muhammad. So if you can go to Google right now and type in Fat Muhammad, you'll actually see the picture of the Messiah, right? And there were 6 others before him. Jesus was the 5th Messiah. Moses was the 4th Messiah, and there were 3 others before that. And all these messiahs were sent to earth during times whereby black people were struggling and they needed hope. So messiahs were sent to the earth so that they can give black people hope and also try to remind them who they are also. And the reason, and in fact, these messiahs, it's not that we are not told about them, right? It's that especially the first 3 messiahs, back then there wasn't a lot of recording that was done, right? That was done in terms of writing and whatever. So we lost that information. But then as time went by and people started writing things down, especially around the times of Moses, that's when people started knowing that, okay, there's a Messiah that came, and then they started documenting those things, right? But these messiahs, when they came, they didn't come here to be worshipped. Jesus did not come here to get worshipped, but because of the miracles that he was doing, but because of the person that he was, because of how highly moral he was, we started worshipping him. But this worshipping as well, it didn't even come from black people. It's white people that were worshipping this Jesus. I don't know if that answers the question.
Okay, I'm gonna go to guys. We're gonna have to start wrapping up soon. How do our current kings and queens fit into the 144,000? The 144,000 new kings and queens for the black people.
The current kings and queens of the world that we know are not necessarily part of the 144,000. In fact, I'd also go as far as saying that they are definitely not. because most of them are corrupted. They're working with governments. They're getting paid and all of those things. So I wouldn't. The kings of today are not for black people actually, because there is no king that truly knows himself that would ever succumb to white people. So they are
Is it
definitely not 4,000.
okay? Guys, I can't. We can't talk about the vaccine and that stuff because YouTube has a problem with that. But Nedle you're saying if one is dreaming about their past lives, how can one then fully piece those dreams together to make sense of them?
So first of all, this is why we must practice writing our dreams down, right? So that we can make sense of them for that exact same reason, right? So when you dream about your past life, this is something that does not happen normally. It usually happens during initiation under the right rituals and the right circumstances, right? That's when you actually get to experience one of your past lives. But it is possible that your first self allows you that experience for whatever reason. Most of which is spiritual growth, right? They can allow you to remember or give you a memory of your past life. But now, when they give you a memory of your past life, it doesn't mean that they will now give you the memory of everything that was happening in your past life. They will always just give you a fraction, and that fraction is just there to remind you that, hey, you were this. Remember, go back to being this. The time has come now.
Mpo's asking, what is your reality and who is God to you? Do you believe that Yeshua came in flesh and died for the sins of humanity?
Yeshua, who is also the man known as Jesus, um, was definitely alive. This is not even a of debate or a belief. He was definitely alive, and he did not die for the sins of men. That is definitely a lie. He did not die for. He did not come here to die for us. He came here to to remind us who we are. And in fact, I'll go on to say that all of those people, all of those seven messiahs, are also part of the 144,000. And this is where where the story of the Jesus resurrection comes from, because what happened during Jesus' time is that he was actually killed, right? He was stabbed, but they did not kill him. They did not really kill him. He was in a state of he was in a comatose state for 3 days. But back then, people didn't know about this comatose state, right? So they assumed that Jesus died, whereas he was actually in a coma and he was still alive. But then, after 3 days, he woke up from that coma, just as people do today normally. He woke up from that coma, and once he woke up from that coma, that's when he decided that his time to resurrect in one of the 144,000 ancient bodies of glory has come. So he consciously left his body and he entered one of the 144,000 bodies, right? And then he came with that body. And in fact, during that time, a lot of people saw that body for themselves when Jesus was alive. So the resurrection story of Jesus, that's where it actually comes from. From Jesus being part of the 144,000 people and resurrecting in one of the ancient bodies, just as many and the rest of the 144,000 are going to do.
Okay, all blessings with Gusiso is saying, I love how you include both feminine and masculine. You once said that we should meditate until we clearly hear our higher selves. Can you advise on how exactly you do that?
So I'm not sure if I actually said specifically that we must meditate, because meditation is only a part of what we need to do, not the entirety of it, right? The main thing that we need to do to hear the voice of our higher selves is to practice asking ourselves questions and listening to the very first answer that comes to our mind. Because whenever we ask ourselves questions, God talks first, and then everything else follows after that. Our thoughts, in fact, also follow after whatever God says. So, where meditation enters is that it helps you to be at a point whereby you are able to still your conscious mind enough so that whenever you ask yourself a question, you are able to listen to the subconscious mind, which is where your first self resides, which is where God is. You are able to listen to that subconscious mind and say, okay, I want to, let's say, for example, what should I wear tomorrow? If you have been practicing meditation enough, if you have been practicing still in your mind, you will be able to hear that first answer that comes to your mind. That very first answer that comes to your mind is the answer that comes from God directly. And that's how we can be able to hear the voice of our higher self.
Tabiso is saying thank you for the book. And please remember to say the title of the book when you answer BlackGod. Thank you for the book, and I'm enjoying every topic. Started reading the book last week, and I'm left with a few questions to complete level 1.
Yes, Black Root Science is the book. That's the name of the book. This is how it looks for those that want to see it. I make sure that I don't forget it. I always have it next to me. So yes. Sorry, wait, what was the question? I think I missed it.
Oh no, there's no question. Actually, he's just saying he enjoys it, and he's about to finish level 1. The truth about stars and other dimensions and realities. Is the Earth a closed system?
The Earth is not a closed system. The Earth is part of a much larger system that we refer to as the universe. All of these bodies that are in the universe are actually in coordination with each other. So the Earth is definitely not a closed system. It's not closed out from whatever is happening out there.
Sure. Cassandra the Truth is saying, good afternoon. Are twin flames a real thing?
There are different definitions of twin flames. So maybe I'll have to know what they define as twin flame first, and then from there answer the question.
I don't know if you can unpack that, please, Cassandra. We are starting to wrap up. I'm just going through the questions in your last episode. I'm hoping that Cassandra can ask because we are about to finish up. What about people that just say this is propaganda? This thing you're talking about. I see some of the comments in your last episode saying no, you're just schizophrenic and this is propaganda. What do you think of that?
That does not have any effect on me at all. I was expecting those people, and I'm expecting them especially from, because the truth of the matter, my sister, is that this information is very, very high level, right? It's very, very, and in fact, I'll go on to say that it is a fact that not all Black people will be able to digest the truth. This very truth that I'm presenting, not all of them are capable of digesting it. Some you can even preach to them the truth each and every single day. They will still say I, because of that's how deeply ingrained we've been influenced by white people. Like it's very bad. So to that I say it's not a problem at all if you don't believe me. That is fine. We only need 144,000 people to ultimately change the world. That's the number that we need to reach. 144,000 people that will resurrect in the ancient bodies and take over control of the earth. The rest of everyone who thinks that I'm lying can continue in their ignorance. That's fine with me.
Tabiso saying, are there any other griots that you know of besides Mudimunch?
One griot that used to live here was actually Umkhulu Credo Mutwa, though he was a different type of griot, right? He was what we call a Moseki in Setswana, meaning that's a memorizing griot. If you would look at Umkhulu Credo Mutwa and study his teachings, you'd know that Umkhulu Credo Mutwa never forgot anything that he experienced. He was a memorizing griot, so he was taught in that way from a very very young age, taught certain truths about Black people, and he memorized them. And he was taught these things in a story format. That's why a lot of his teachings are in stories, whereby he narrates stories. Say, there's a story of this person who did what, and he'll tell you the stories in deep detail. And you'll wonder how does this person tell the story in deep detail, and tells it the very same way every time. And then we have Mudimunchu, who is a Mutsidi. And Mutsidi is one who lives with the ancestors, and that's a different type of griot as well. And just to answer the question, no, I don't know any other griot besides Mudimuncho, because all griots are right now living in secluded areas of the earth. They're living their private lives there. But there are definitely other griots. Mudimuncho is not the only griot. It's not the only griot for sure.
And then finally, because my phone is about to die, as we wrap up, Venus is saying, so are Egyptians black and not colored or Arabic descent as promoted by Western medias?
Ancient Egyptians were definitely black. They were not white. They were not even colored. They were as black as the next guy. And yes, they were black. Just to answer the question, they were black. All of them. Ancient Egyptians were black. Your King Tutankhamun, all of those people, all of them were black.
Absolutely. And that speaks to even since black people are the first race, naturally, if we look at it like that, also, that speaks to the first
Yeah.
people being black. So, therefore, ancient Egyptians were black. Abu Kgosi, thank you so, so much for your time. It's always such a privilege. I have no doubt that they're going to ask you to come again. So, please have patience for us and continue to have an open heart and be keen to come again, either live stream or studio, because I know that I re so kgotsofala. But I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of the over 500 people who are here.
Over
So,
500,
huh?
over 500 people.
Over 500 people are here, 530 to be exact. So thank you so much, guys. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Please watch all the adverts so that we can keep the channel going. Otherwise, we are struggling on the funding side, and it's a bit scary to think we might lose the channel. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and continue to be part of the family. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank you.
again, Abu Kgosi. I'm ending the stream now.